Existence of such a loan. We speak with Jack Crisostomo, economist from the World Bank in Washington, D.C., live. And the Philippine foreign direct investments fall to a 6-month low led by equity outflows. Has revised its full year 2025 GDP forecast for the Philippines to 5.5%, slightly lower than the earlier 5.6% estimate. Research head and chief economist Angelo Taninco cited inclement weather, political risks from corruption and governance issues, and higher tariffs as factors dragging down growth in the second half of the year. This comes as the Development Budget Coordination Committee also cut its outlook last June, projecting the Philippine economy to expand by only 5.5% to 6.5% in 2025, a downgrade from the previous 6% to 8% target range. While growth prospects are being tempered, the latest labor force survey also shows fresh signs of strains in the job market. The country's jobless rate surged to 5.3% in July, up from 3.7% the previous month, meaning some 2.59 million Filipinos were unemployed. Security Bank Corporation will release the official note later at 12 noon Manila time. RCBC meantime says it will keep its growth forecast of 5.5% to 6%. We now speak with Mike Ricafort, the chief economist at RCBC. Good to see you again, Mike. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good morning, Kathy and to viewers. Nice to be back.
All right, so Security Bank's cutting its forecast, but you're keeping yours. Why?
Well, Kathy, it's realistically, there may be some slowdown on some government spending, particularly on infrastructure. But nonetheless, this is something new. The anti-corruption narrative would be taken positively by both by the financial markets, and that would also support over the long term, and it would boost confidence on the country's economic fundamentals on the fiscal side, as well as confidence on the financial markets. We have seen that over the past 10 or if not 20 years, whenever there's a move to improve governance and through anti-corruption measures. So it would be beneficial overall on the economy.
But as you say, Mike, it is something new. So what are you hearing from analysts and investment community partners, as well as clients, on this sort of political risk arising from government corruption allegations like we've not heard of before?
Yeah, true, Kathy. Well, it may be something that's acknowledged in the past and already priced in or factored into our markets, as well as for the figures for the broader economy, for instance, the GDP growth. But the thing is, any move to put that at the forefront, anti-corruption measures, strengthen the rule of law, strengthen institutions, further raise governance standards. It's all consistent with the adherence to the ESG standards, because global regulators have been encouraging global investors to patronize governments, countries, and even businesses and industries that comply and adhere to ESG standards. Because adherence to ESG standards means good business, and that's really the way to go, and it would really improve everything, Kathy. From the point, not just from the point of view of both local and international investors, but also from the point of view of creditors, because it goes to show that if there's indeed seriousness on good governance, on anti-corruption measures, to even prioritize that. We have seen that like 10 to 15 years ago, and definitely that would improve transparency, that would also improve confidence.
As these corruption allegations, investigations go, there is the deliberation that's going on now for the 2026 national budget. Does your forecast cut include the possibility of a reenacted budget because of the delays and also the stoppages that's happening on right now as the investigation proceeds?
Well, Kathy, well, a reenacted budget would be the worst case scenario. Well, at least a track record would show that as much as possible, that would be avoided because it means there would be less government spending and slower economic growth. But yeah, but now, well, if there would be, you know, to start with, the allegations of anomalous or inexistent projects do not really add value actually in the first place, and so eliminating those would be something good. That's good for in narrowing the budget deficit because that's quite a concern already when it comes to the widening budget deficits, the growing debt, and the rising debt to GDP ratio now at 63.2%, given that the international threshold is at 60%. So this would be taken positively, and also from the point of view of the multilaterals, so they would have greater confidence to lend to us. Well, at least the acknowledgement is there, and also the crackdown crackdown, meaning to say on corruption allegations,
But
and
the reenacted
more
budget, if
prudent use of
that
resources.
happens, as you say, it would be the worst case scenario. What sort of a scenario then, in terms of GDP forecasts, would that compel you to revise down your GDP forecasts?
If and when that happens, Kathy, yes, maybe a slight revision, considering that a reenacted budget would deprive the necessary growth in government spending. That since government spending is a major contributor to GDP growth, if and when that happens, and if it also becomes imminent. But for now, at least 5.5% is still achievable, given all those factors, both external and internal, particularly the Trump's higher tariffs, the slowdown in the world economy as a result of that, and also the other protectionist measures that could indirectly slow down the economy. Like, for instance, there are pending moves by the Trump administration to also, the threats of higher tariffs on electronic exports. That's at least 100% to even as high as 300%, unless the global semicon companies, or the chip makers, electronic companies would locate or invest in the U.S. And another one would be the keep the call centers in America. Well, we have yet to see that because that has been passed. Well, that's something proposed in the U.S. Senate last July, and we'll see how would that one transpire.
Given those
Finally,
uncertainties, and we're looking beyond our shores, there's a lot more to consider. What are the implications then on the pace of easing by the Bangko Sentral? The governor himself last month mentioned that the current 5% is Goldilocks rate.
yeah, true, Kathy. That's also one consideration because there may be underlying reasons for it, like the signals, less dovish signals. For instance, the monetary easing cycles nearing an end. Maybe local monetary officials they signaled another 25 basis points cut for the rest of the year. So that would be a terminal rate at around 4.75%. But if now there's rising expectation in the U.S. because of the weak job figures for the second straight month, the markets are pricing in 3 Fed rate cuts. That's more than the 2 cuts estimated by the Fed officials to the dot plot. So therefore, the terminal rate for the target for the local BSP policy rate would be as low as 4.5%. So that's a safe estimate, 4.5 to 4.75. And if there would be, of course, it's a function of softer economic data that would warrant, whether it's here locally or in the U.S., that would warrant additional support in terms of monetary easing and also expansion of fiscal policy. That's why those things, they do intertwine, both monetary policy and fiscal policy, Kathy.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your insights. RCBC Chief Economist Mike Ricafort. Well, DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon is seeking for a lookout order against his predecessor just a day after Senator Ping Lacson linked him to a contractor. In a letter dated September 10, Dizon is requesting Justice Secretary Boying Rimulya to issue an immigration lookout bulletin order against former DPWH Chief Manny Bonoan and his daughter Fatima Gay de la Cruz. Dizon is also seeking a lookout order against Candaba Pampanga Mayor Rene Maglangke and 2 others. The ILBO request comes as Lacson unveiled how Bonoan is connected with the global CREET builders, which bagged 2.2 billion pesos worth of flood control deals from 2018 to 2024 in Bulacan alone. The senator said Maglangke, who was president of Global Creep in 2024, owns MBB Global Properties Corporation, in which Bonoan's daughter serves as treasurer. Dizon said the ILBO is necessary to ensure the timely conduct of the investigation over alleged ghost projects and hold those responsible accountable. Newly minted Senate President Tito Soto has left unsigned a request to place controversial contractors Curly and Sara Diskaya under the Witness Protection Program. The request was made by former Blue Ribbon Chair Senator Rodante Marcoleta to Justice Secretary Boying Rimulya after the Diskayas implicated several House lawmakers in alleged anomalies in flood control projects. Soto told PH's Sa Totoo Lang they cannot qualify as state witnesses unless they return what they allegedly stole and provide complete testimony. He further flagged inconsistencies in the Diskayas' testimonies.
Umamin ka, ninakaw mo, balik mo lahat ng ginakaw mo, at tapos yung testimony mo kailangan kompleto. Hindi kalahati. Ano? Yung mga binabanggit ni Diskaya, saka yung mga sinabi niya rito sa hearing sa Senado, iba mga sinabi niya no sa House. Ba't ko naman pipirmahan niya, i-recommend ako mag-state witness? Sige nga, explica nila sa akin.
Opo. So,
paano mo papayag?
Meanwhile, former Public Works official Bryce Hernandez has been moved from Camp Crame to the Pasay City Jail after the Senate cited him in contempt for refusing to admit he used fake IDs in casinos. Senators arrived at the consensus after former Blue Ribbon Committee Chair Marcoleta took issue with Senate President Soto's order last Tuesday to have Fernandez officially moved to Camp Crame. After a heated floor debate, the lawmakers eventually compromised by detaining Hernandez at the jail nearest to the Senate. Senator Bam Aquino is pushing to use blockchain technology to eradicate corruption in the Philippines. Under Senate Bill 1330, Aquino is proposing to create the National Budget Blockchain System where the DICT, DBM, and COA will record all budget-related documents as digital public assets or DPAs. Should it become law, a portal will be open to access DPAs in real time, enabling stakeholders to track down the flow of funds. Aquino said using modern technology will allow the public to see whether their taxes are spent correctly. Fintechs Alliance Philippines is backing the proposal, with founding chairman Lito Villanueva saying blockchain will help Filipinos see where their hard-earned money goes. You're watching Money Talks. Coming up, the Philippine foreign direct investments have fallen to 6-month lows. And catch our conversation with economist Chuck Crisostomo of the World Bank in Washington, D.C. Keep it here on One News. Welcome back to Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. The Departments of Finance and Agrarian Reform has denied the existence of a supposed loan from South Korea that was reportedly suspended due to corruption concerns. In a Facebook post, South Korean President Lee Jae-myung hit the brakes on the supposed Philippine loan amounting to 700 billion Korean won or 28.7 billion pesos. He said the loan could have been used for corruption. Lee added that since the project has not yet started and the funding comes from the Economic Development Cooperation Fund or EDCFA program designed to give aid to developing countries is left untouched. Lee attached a report from Korean publication Hankorye detailing how the loan would be used for a rural modular bridge project named after President Marcos. The report claimed that an ally of former President Yoon Suk-yeol, who was impeached earlier this year, pushed for the loan despite Seoul's Ministry of Strategy and Finance raising red flags on the project. But the Finance Department denied the existence of the loan. It clarified that the bridge project is currently being proposed for financing by the government of France, not South Korea. Seoul was not considered for the project because of its non-alignment in scope and other key technical specifications, so the Department of Agrarian Reform halted negotiations last year. In an interview with Philstar.com, DAR Secretary Conrado Estrella III said Philippine and South Korean officials met in December 2023 for exploratory talks, with the latter initiating pitches for funding support. Senate Finance Committee Chair Sherwin Gatchalian called it an embarrassing act for the Philippines after South Korea supposedly ordered the suspension of a 28 billion peso loan due to corruption concerns. Gatchalian warned this could hurt the country's infrastructure development, noting that both locally and foreign-funded projects are heavily relied upon. He stressed the need to restore public and international trust, saying foreign partners will hesitate to lend if funds are lost to corruption. Our guest is an economist and innovation policy specialist working with the World Bank in Washington, D.C. With us now for more is Cha Crisostomo, live from D.C. Well, good to see you, Cha. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Kathy, and good morning to all the viewers.
All right. So how are you and the Filipino community there in the U.S. taking all of this in, all the Senate and congressional inquiries into the corruption allegations involving infrastructure projects?
Well, it's like we never left home. Social media is keeping us updated with all of the developments. There are 4.4 million Filipinos here in the U.S. Most of them are OFWs sending remittances and taxes to the Philippines. So you can feel the frustration of the community here because we expect that the hard-earned money that we send back home gets spent on projects that are that underwent proper project selection with clear cost-benefit ratios, with transparent contracting awarding processes. But now that is being challenged by this current scandal.
Yeah, as you say, it's like it never left home, but it's even more magnified being an overseas Filipino, as one would imagine. What are they intending to do to make their voice heard, to make your voice heard from where you are on what's going on here?
We're definitely having discussions here amongst ourselves. So the young professionals here in DC, we have a very tight-knit community here. We're constantly collaborating with people from the embassy in order to make our voices heard, particularly in issues that are of national interest, such as this flood control program. So I hope that we can do something a bit more tangible after our collaboration, because everything is pretty new, and we're still in the process of coordinating ourselves in order for us to have something a bit more, a project that we can propose to the embassy in order to demand accountability, particularly for this issue.
Yeah, speaking up does help, and just collaborating with everybody who's just as concerned, especially so when it concerns loans. I mean, what impact could these corruption allegations have on sovereigns and on multilateral institutions like the World Bank with existing or planned loans to the Philippines?
Yes. Well, Kathy, I'm speaking independently, but based on my experience, whenever there are high-profile corruption or procurement integrity issues for existing projects, it will trigger tighter fiduciary controls. There would be very close prior review and supervision. And for existing projects, there could be a possible slowing of disbursement. This is important because a lot of these development projects, we want it to be done as possible in order for it to achieve the development outcome it seeks to achieve. So any delays is to the detriment of the country. For proposed projects, this can be a bit detrimental because for proposed projects, this kind of high-profile issue would trigger tighter governance and anti-corruption supervision. So most of the multilaterals would definitely readjust their risk assessment, and that will change decisions on what types of projects will be, what types of lending projects will be implemented in the Philippines.
It really is a clarion call for transparency, traceability, and accessibility, just lending support for the use of the loans. Senator Bam Aquino has filed a bill seeking to block chain technology to overhaul how the Philippines manages and monitors its national budget, thinking that it could eradicate corruption. But what do you make of the use of blockchain against corruption, being an innovation advocate?
I would say that blockchain, it cannot completely eliminate corruption, but it can put in place systems to enhance transparency in public finance projects. Because essentially what you have in a blockchain is a single tamper evident trail linking disbursements to contracts, invoices and deliverables. And all of this is accessible to oversight bodies and stakeholders. So in the end, what you have is a real-time traceability system with a lot more simple processes, which can reduce the opportunity to manipulate records or divert funds. That's not something that you can do easily with the current budget processes, because in my experience, budget documents are very difficult and very opaque, and it's scattered all over different government agencies. So it's a challenge just to verify a single receipt, much more specificities in different contracts that the governments are making.
Speaking of challenges, one of the challenges you see is that we're positioned as passive consumers so far. When we talk about the full ecosystem of AI or of even technology, as we're talking about blockchain, how do we then position ourselves favorably in the global market if it's not all too late, Chat?
No problem at all. One major challenge that we have, or what we see, especially in Philippine firms, is they have this, they hesitate to adopt digital technologies because there's lack of competitive pressure. An interesting thing that we found in our work is that the top firms in the Philippines are not that comparable to the top firms in other countries, which suggests that they probably have no incentive to upgrade into better technology such as AI. The second, which is the most important one, is the digital skill gap. The Philippines suffers an important deficit in ICT skills. We have a lot of Filipinos whose basic literacy is very low. And without these basic digital skills, upgrading to more advanced digital technologies is just out of the question. And this sits on top of our lack of investment in human capital. Our educational attainment is very low compared to our other peers in the region. So we definitely need to work more and invest in improving our education and our digital skills in order for us to compete with other countries in the world. And this is especially critical now that the world is being reshaped by artificial intelligence.
Well, speaking of risks, I mean, now that there is a digital divide that exists and the opportunity to actually ramp up on AI, what is a bigger risk now? Is it that we are unable to upskill as quickly, or is it that we stay where we are?
I would say that with the data that we're seeing right now, we don't need to be, we are at a position where we need to take advantage of the productivity enhancing capabilities of AI. What we found is if a firm adopts a particular digital technology and integrates it in its processes, it can improve its day-to-day operations, produce more output, and that can translate to growth. But if without the investments in digital skills, it would be difficult for firms to do this. And we see a lot of groups, even our leading firms, saying that there's a shortage in skills, particularly digital skills. So it will be a problem in the future if we don't address this.
All right, that's a clarion call, then a call to action. Thank you so much for your insights from where you are. Chat Chrysostom of the World Bank in Washington, D.C. Foreign direct investments in the Philippines fell to a 6-month low in June. This as global trade risks continued to weigh on market sentiment, resulting in a net outflow of equity capital. Preliminary data from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas showed FDI net inflows fell by nearly 18% to $376 million. This was the lowest net inflow since the $356 million in December 2024. Economists attributed the decline to global trade risks and U.S. tariffs. as well as domestic challenges, including infrastructure gaps and policy uncertainty, adding to the slowdown. For the first half of 2025, net inflows fell nearly 24% to $3.4 billion. Philippine electronics exports are expected to post flat to modest growth this year, despite risks from potential U.S. tariffs and semiconductor imports. SAPI President Dan Lachica said an uptick of 1 to 2% is possible, citing strong exports performance. Data from the PSA showed electronics exports rose over 7% to $25.6 billion from the January to July period. Currently, semiconductor exports are not subject to tariffs because of Section 232 of the U.S. Trade Expansion Act of 1962. And a look at the markets in the U.S., they were a mixed bag Wednesday after producer prices unexpectedly fell, bolstering the case for a Fed rate cut. The S&P and the Nasdaq both reached record highs, with the former rising by 0.33% and the latter by less than 0.1%. The Dow tumbled by nearly 0.5%. Benchmark 10-year Treasury yields ticked down to 4.067%, and gold prices have reached a fresh high for the fourth straight session, settling at $3,643 per troy ounce. And taking a look at the U.S. futures, they are pointing to slight gains when the markets open later tonight, Manila time. The Dow, the S&P, and the Nasdaq are all up by 0.1%. As for Asian markets, they're looking like a mixed bag. This Thursday, Japan's Nikkei 225 is up 0.8%, South Korea's Kospi up by 0.33%, and Australia's ASX is down by 0.1%. And a quick check on the Philippine markets here. The PSEI opening this Thursday higher by about 0.2%, 6,137. The local bourse slightly declined yesterday, Wednesday, amid late-day profit-taking, according to PhilStocks Financial. The broader all-shares index marginally fell, with sectoral gauges mostly in the red. As for the Philippine peso, it opens today stronger, 57.05 to the dollar. Peso weakened yesterday, Wednesday, to 57.125 against the greenback. And the 10-year government bond yields posted an uptick yesterday at 5.959%. And before we go, the Philippines' longest-running European Film Festival is back. Cine Europa 28 is presented by the EU delegation to the Philippines and EU member state embassies. The festival features 17 curated films from across Europe. It runs until September 17th with special screenings in Cebu, Tacloban, and Bacolod. Admission is free on a first-come, first-served basis at Shangri-La Plaza in Mandaluyong. And it already feels like Friday, but it's not. That is it for Money Talks. I'm Kathy Yang. Catch us again tomorrow, 9:30 a.m. here on One News. Have a great day ahead.